Late morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome on into the Brass Ring Media Flagship podcast for Friday, October 13th, 2023. Good to have you all with us. I'm Zach Haydorn. That is Tyler Sage. Tyler, what's going on, man? Did you go on any Twitter rants before you hopped on here today? That seems to be the thing in the wrestling world. So just want to know if you did or didn't do that.
No, I did
Ah,
not. Obviously my poll is not as great as some people going on things. And, I think my favorite, it's like every Reddit post about the subject is someone just posting the Orange Cassidy saying, "I'm so tired, Renee." They're like, "I'm going to
yeah,
use this every time until this stops." And it has not stopped. So that
yeah,
kind of gets the vibe. I mean, it gives you and I something to talk about. But when in a week with, this is the first weekend for a long time that we have not we're not going to have a roundtable for a pay per view, right? There's been lots of wrestling to talk about, and this is dominating. When it's not Vince McMahon doing something, it's Tony Khan doing something. It's everything's political in its own way, shape, and form, right? It's kind of that stuff like where you talk about the personalities, you talk about
yeah.
in the United States right now, you talk about who's going to be the next speaker of the house, and it's not really anything about policy, right? It's all about
Right.
like the person, and is this team laughing at them, or is this team, oh, we look stupid, or oh, we look great? Same thing in wrestling, right?
The
So
madness. Yeah, the
yeah,
madness plays. The madness
yep,
sells. And yeah, we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it all here on our podcast and hit more of it on the members only side of things at Brass Ring Media. This is, as I mentioned, the Brass Ring Media free flagship podcast every single week on Fridays. Tyler and I come to you live on YouTube, and we talk the news of the week in professional wrestling. If you can't catch us live on Fridays, you can catch us live or catch us in podcast form the next day, and hear this exact show wherever you find all of your podcasts. If you like what you hear, guys, we really appreciate the support and become a member of Brass Ring Media. You can do that over on Patreon, patreon.com/Brass Ring Media. You will have full access to all of our content all week long. That includes a members only podcast that Tyler and I do each and every single week, exclusive member written columns on our Substack page, access to our Discord world. And Tracy is a avid participant there. Happy Friday, Tracy. Thanks for joining us. And yes, it is a avenue to talk professional wrestling, not on Twitter. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully you join us. And then there's odds and ends all throughout the week and all throughout the month that we give you as our members. So it's $4. And again, it helps us and it supports the show and makes this all happen. And we'd appreciate any support you'd be willing to give us. Patreon.com/Brass Ring Media. All right. With that out of the way, Tyler, what is going on with Tony Khan? Because it's one thing, and I didn't agree with this strategy either. It's one thing to kind of build some hype for the big Tuesday night showdown and talk a little trash and be a little out there before the show in an effort to drum up momentum from your base, if you will, to make it even more of a political analogy. But after the fact, you probably don't want to be doing what you're doing if you're Tony Khan, and that is just random tirades on Twitter about John Cena and the Undertaker never being on a show below, 1 million viewers. So not only are you in that scenario talking about like talent in a way that puts them on a pedestal above your talent, but it's also, your show got trounced by 300 plus thousand viewers on the same night. And I think it's just a total misstep. All this Twitter stuff with Tony Khan, it's a miss all the way around. It was a miss before the show. I think it's a miss after. I'm of the belief that it doesn't even matter what it is that he's saying. I'm not so hung up on, he called out The Undertaker and he called out John Cena. Like, yeah, he did. But to me, it's just the fundamental principle of you being on Twitter as much as you are as the head and president and general manager and CEO of this company. Like, get your ass off Twitter, pretty much. Like, you have way more important, or you should have way more important things to do than to try to find random non-win wins for a show that you knew you were going to lose to. Like, come on, there's no reasonable reason to think that you were going to beat NXT in viewership, not with what they pulled out. So I look at all this and I'm like, yeah, whatever. You can analyze till the cows come home what he said, but ultimately, it doesn't matter. You need to be off Twitter. You need to be worried about other things. You need to be not playing that game. Vince McMahon, for as petty as he is, would not be on Twitter saying this kind of thing. It just wouldn't happen. Paul Levesque isn't on Twitter saying this kind of thing. Shawn Michaels isn't on Twitter saying this kind of thing. I think Tony Khan needs to be above that and mature a little bit here. And I think, he's running off. I know I've talked to fans that have been like, yeah, like I'm all for the competition, but this has really turned me off. And I think that's probably a broad opinion. So that's my thoughts on it. Tyler, my guess is we're pretty close to aligned on this, but what do you think?
Yeah, we are. I would take it even further out, like what you're saying there, all his titles that he has self-appointed himself, right? And Vince McMahon was never that, right? He was, but that's a whole nother thing to give yourself so many titles and say 80 hours is not working enough.
Yeah.
All that stuff that we've talked about in the past. And I would just like to echo your point here. Is there anybody who's a leader of a company, of a country, of like someone of prominence, a celebrity of magnitude that is active on Twitter and doesn't have a filter, that it is good for them ever in the end to be like that?
No, never.
I would say no. Obviously, different category, but Elon Musk. This strikes me like big same energy between the two, right? And and if I was ever gonna get a job for AEW, if I do, this video will surface and will get canned. So keep that in mind for everyone. Please click this so you can ruin my career later if that happens. But it's that whole like to get micro now on that is, I went to private school, so I'll be here for my bio, but my dad works for the post office still, and my mom was a secretary, right? So I'm not Victoria Beckham. My dad did not drive a Rolls Royce. I don't know if you've seen that clip rolling around.
I did, yes.
It was very funny. So, but I went to a school. My parents valued my education. So I don't know what yours is. I'm getting in here, but they paid thousands of dollars a year for me to go to high school, basically. And in that capacity, there's a lot of kids who drive a brand new Audi to school, and they act like they are poor people, right? And so in that capacity, that's like the level of disparity. And I bring all this up not just to give you my bio, but there's lots of times where rich kids make excuses for some things or act a certain way to cover up for some insecurities that are built into maybe not earning things, right? I'm not saying that's fully what Tony Khan's situation is there, but he has not dealt with a lot of adversity, I would say. Like all humans deal with adversity, right? Some people it's more tangible to like, hey, you got to survive to get food on the table. I was never in that position. I'm not trying to claim that, but there's some people that are born rich, have a lot of things brought up to them. They create issues because like every human needs like an obstacle to overcome. I think that's why people are more happy working in general than not working, even though I think we'd all like to be retired. But there's not like a whole. What I'm trying to say here is Tony Khan has built him into this situation, and this is one of the first times that he's failed pretty drastically, and he's not taking it well. Would be my psychology take on Tony Khan here, is that he is like absolutely cannot handle what is going on right now in this moment, and he always beat NXT in the past. He did not this time. He's probably feeling for the first time that the company's on the decline as he's about to try and negotiate a new TV deal, so he's freaking out about that. So all of it is a bad cocktail for a leader of a company. And from the macro to the micro, it's bad every step of the way. And I agree 100% with you. Get off Twitter, stop talking, don't go out in front of the crowd before, during, and after the shows. Like,
Yeah,
lay low for like 6 months, and just like put your nose in the book, hire people that will help make your show better, hire new camera people that will get the effing shots when Edge is spearing people, and like,
thank you.
if you want to work, and don't talk about working. Because that's like another thing for me personally, is when someone says they work a lot, they do not work a lot. That is a fact of all facts. And we've all worked with people who their full-time job is saying how much they work while you're doing everything
All the
to
work.
keep a
Yeah.
certain department together. So like, that also infuriates me. So I'll stop ranting here. That's my Twitter rant for people on YouTube and the patrons.
It's just I don't get it. Like, a part of me just doesn't get it. Like I guess I just don't know what his expectation was. Like, I I don't know. I always thought, looking at this, that there's no way you're gonna win. And so the expectation at that point should be, well, let's just put on the best show that we can, and you know, the chips will fall where they may, and the win is in WWE feeling like they have to load up the show. That's the only win that you were going to get in that's it. Like, once the WWE decided to put John Cena on the show and Cody Rhodes on the show and basically promote The Undertaker, like, that's it. Like, you're done. Like, you are done. And
Mhm.
I think Tony Khan put a nice card up against it. I think he put a nice show up against it. But not only do these rants after the fact, like, show that he is not taking this loss well, it also shows that his idea of where his company is compared to where it actually is very, very out of whack. And maybe that's throwing him for a loop too, where he thinks they're here and they're really, like, down here. You're not competing with John Cena and The Undertaker and Cody Rhodes. I mean, come on. Like, it's just, and that's not a knock. It's just John Cena is a mainstream, top tier, premier, one of the biggest stars the industry has ever seen, period. Like, I'm sorry, but Swerve Strickland against Bryan Danielson, it's not topping that. Jay White against Hangman Page is not topping that. And, it makes me wonder, like, when we talk about weekly, like, man, is Tony Khan really looking inward? And is he really looking at the product with a fresh set of glasses on? This type of tirade, like, tells me that he's not. It tells me that he sees his company in a certain light and in a certain way, and is not able to see it for what it really is, and therefore not able to correct the issues that could make the product and the show and the company better. This is totally telling to me in terms of how he views that, because I think it was just a total out of touch expectation and out of touch reaction. And if he's doing that on a public scale, I mean, imagine what the hell he's saying, like, in private. Like, it's just, I think it's a total just misplaced perception of your company. And if I'm Chris Jericho, like, I don't know, if you're Chris Jericho, especially Chris Jericho, how are you not going to Tony Khan and saying, look, Tony, here's the deal. We're not going to beat NXT on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he should be saying, you know? And if he's not, shame on Chris. And if he is and Tony's not listening, shame on Tony. But I think this whole thing is telling, um, in terms of where AW is, and where Tony Khan is with the company. And I'd say, if the perception was, yikes, the train's off the track a little bit before this show, man, I mean, it is off the track, I think, now that the show's in the can and done.
Well, 2 points on that. First of all, not to hammer your point like negatively, because I agree with you. Like, Chris Jericho is probably like the voice of reason, but when your voice of reason, like this week, released a podcast with a guy who's talking about the Earth being flat, you know, I think that also is like a good correlation of where uh, your counselors are. That you might not have the strongest support base, but
Wait,
beyond,
what did he do?
I mean, he's always got like he'll do like I mean, I haven't listened to his podcast in a long time,
Yeah.
but it was more like when it was like him and Kenny post their match at the at the Tokyo Dome. That was very cool. Them breaking down the match and how they came together, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, he'll have like guys in rock bands and some kind of interesting people, and then he'll have like once a month have like a big time conspiracy person on, and he had like the flat Earth guy on again. So because I saw it on his Instagram. So there's that. And then so the other thing here is like I don't know if you know the answer to this, but like Tony Khan does not have a significant other that we are aware of, right?
I don't think so. I
Okay,
don't know, but I don't think so.
because I like again, I think it'd be great if he did. I think that would help with a lot of things. I think there you would we check our significant others and they check us, right? I think that's an important part of being an adult human. And that's why we kind of most people get in a monogamous relationship.
Hmm.
And that not saying it's not wrong. It's not nothing wrong with that if you don't do that for any reason or any other version of it. But like most people conform to that in society because it helps to structure you economically and just in your daily life, right? Gives you structure. If you have kids, if you don't have kids, whatever, like that person's there to,
Yeah.
whatever. Just think the most minute detail. You wear like some crazy pants, and your partner's be like, "Hey, are these like too crazy?" And you're like, "Yeah, they're too crazy." Like, but if you
Seriously,
don't
it's
have
really
that,
that?
yeah, if you don't have that, you're gonna walk out with those crazy pants on, right? And I just think like something like that would very much help Tony to have someone that is a equal. And I'm not saying that he is even interpersonally a bad person because I don't think that's the case. I think he's generally tries to be a pretty nice person interpersonally with people,
Yeah.
but those people are employees. Those people, like everyone he interacts with, is an employee of his, unless it's his dad, who he is basically an employee of too. With when you're super rich, your parents are more your bosses than your parents, right? Especially in this context where he fronted the money for this company, Shad did, and all that sort of stuff. And he needs to get investment back on that. So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is like there's probably very few people that like can talk to Tony plainly and he'll listen to without any sort of reason. Like me and you are lucky enough to have, and hopefully everyone else watching this is lucky enough to have someone that you can confide in and can give you guidance that you're going to trust and believe, right? I think he's missing that, and there's an outlet here for Twitter on that front too. Or it's Mr. Flat Earth Haver on his show. So one of the two.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think you're right. And like, this is all, of course, just psychoanalyzing Tony from a distance. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I've said this a lot. Hey, yeah, what's up, Sean? Sean just joined us on the chat. Thank you for being here, man. Appreciate you as always. Thanks for supporting the show, and it's always fun to talk wrestling with you. Tony, just like at some point, here's the thing, man. Like I don't losing to NXT, you know, in all likelihood, is not going to be the worst thing that happens to AEW during its existence. It's like there's a lot of other issues that you could have. Talent could
Mm-hmm.
leave. Talent could get injured. You could have I don't know. We could spend an hour of this show coming up with
Yeah.
bad stuff that would
An
happen to
employee
promotion.
an employee dies. Not
An
while
employee
working
died
on the job, but like he's dealt with that already. That's a much bigger issue here. And he handled that
much bigger.
the right way at least,
Yes.
thankfully. And give
Yes.
credit to him for handling that the best way possible.
Absolutely. And the you know the and so it's like or like if the TV deal goes south,
Mhm.
look, I think it's a very big possibility that they don't get what they're hoping for. Like I think they
Mhm.
get a major increase, of course, but the SmackDown deal was less than projected, and that's SmackDown on Fox doing 2 million plus viewers. Okay, like um, he's going to feel that. And it's like, I think there has to be some maturity here. And I think there has to be a recognition of like, okay, like people in my position, like, we're not going to shoot down We're just going to like run the company how we want to run the company. Shad Khan is not on Twitter, like, you know, mixing it up with everybody. It just doesn't
Yeah.
happen.
When he
Like,
loses, when he loses the football game, he's not talking crap about the
yeah,
other owner.
exactly. And and
Yeah.
and I think it's just it's time. Like, you got to figure out what kind of company like do you really want to be? Like, and I don't necessarily mean from a um, wrestling perspective, but just in general. Like, look, be a wrestling company. You're the number two wrestling company for right now,
Hmm.
and you're a national wrestling company, and you're one of the only ones to ever play in that space with WWE. That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, it's a major, major, major accomplishment. Not to mention, um, you've grown enough too fast, I'd argue, that you have three, you know, network, cable network television properties. You have an amazing talent roster. I mean, you've done some really strong things. Just be that. Be that. Run the company. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Don't worry about WWE. You have to move nights. Okay, fine. Compete with them. But then leave it at that because you're not going to win. And just run a good company. It'd be one thing to be talking like he is if they're beating WWE or they've got like critically acclaimed shows every single week. But a lot of the shows are an absolute disaster, including, what ended up being the MJF promo this week, where it's like lost in the shuffle of all this competition madness. You have a really distasteful part of your major main event promo segment, and it'd be nice to hear him comment on that. If you're going to comment on anything, comment on that. Like, what the hell happened there? Like, I just think he's shining the light in all sorts of the wrong directions, and it's really it's really been unbecoming, and ultimately, I think exactly what WWE would want to see. Like, you're playing right into their hands on this if you think that they are, um, if you think they are like this evil corporate entity who has it out for you, like, you're giving them exactly what they want
Yep.
with this type of reaction. And I'm not saying that's how you need to look at them, but I'm saying clearly he looks at it that way. And if he does, you're giving them exactly what they want.
Agreed.
So let me ask you something. What out of the like psychoanalyzing Tony, world,
Hmm.
what what would be like if you had him on the phone right now and he was like, Tyler, I listen to the Brass String Media Show all the time, and recommend something to me. What do I need to do to make, you know, our company better right now? We took a loss, we took it on the chin. I don't love that. So, what is it? What do we get what do we have to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff we talk about here. First and foremost, if I can get like an extra appetizer in on this, it's for him to stay out of sight for a long time, 6 months, like I said, right? Not coming out to fanfare, all that sort of stuff, right? And then the other thing is something we always talk about is I want six people, six men and three women, right? That's the way you structure your show, kind of from a time standpoint. And I want you to decide on the phone right now who who are going to be bigger stars in the next 6 months that you've decided, and who's going to be your John Cena, your Undertaker, your Cody Rhodes in 15 years. You got to think that long when you're in this company. And someone comes up against you on your night of the week, and you're going to fly them in to parachute down and save your show so you can beat the competition. Who are those people going to be? And if whoever you pick, I want all six of them as long as they're healthy. They're on every episode of Dynamite and Collision doing something important, and the whole show is built around them. You can have fun stuff around that. But like those simple things, like I want him to pick the 9 people and commit that they will be on every episode of Dynamite and Collision. Not all 9, but once a week I'll get to see them for 15 minutes. And that's what he decides. Like it goes through with a fine tooth comb, and he checks everything off. And anything that is in a promo, he has to approve within reason, right? You can get an outline. And then all the other stuff, I want him to delegate what, who's not in there, right? Like what Jericho's doing is delegated to Jericho and Dean Malenko or something, right? And he doesn't do
Mhm.
any of that stuff. He's like, hey, you have 10 minutes on Dynamite, do whatever you got to do. I know it's like a longish answer, but that's what I would advise him as an outsider what to do.
Yeah, good stuff, really good stuff. To me, I would, and I think this first thing is kind of right on the lines where you're talking at the beginning. I would like, I think the tone of the company needs to shift from what it was to what it actually is right now. You, I don't think you can operate, with the same, um, little engine that could mindset that you did when you started out. Like I think at the beginning of AEW, it was valuable for Tony Khan to get in front of the audience and pump them up and show his excitement. I think that resonated early on. But look, if you're 5 years in, you're in your fifth year right now. You got to change. You got to act like you've been there before. You got to act like that you know what you're doing. You got to act like the show is good enough to rah-rah itself, and you don't need Tony Khan out there doing it. I really think that's the perception of Tony as a fan has to go away. Like you can know that, and everybody can understand that, and everybody can appreciate that, but I think you got to take that out of like everyday strategy in terms of how to run the company, and then absolutely, I'm with you on the second thing. They have to pick out who are the top guys, and they need to be on every show, and they need to be featured, and he needs to know what's going on. It's so herky jerky, all this stuff where Swerve's getting this push, and then he's losing to Danielson, and that's it. We just had a comment on it from Sean in our chat. Matches were good this week, but Swerve needed a win, but he couldn't get one because it would have been a heel matchup. So that's clearly Tony going, hey, man, it'd be cool to do Swerve versus Bryan Danielson on this show. Let's do it. And it's like, that doesn't work. Like that worked at the beginning. That worked at the start because you were just featuring cool matches and Danielson was in this cool environment, but it doesn't work anymore. That makes no sense. That match never made any sense outside of we want to do this match. Mm-hmm. I think they're past that as a company. I really do. And, in order to do that, you have to have some integrity with how you present your stars. You have to have some integrity with how you book. And you can't just pivot because, you want a cool match. Like that is fan booking. That is not, we're trying to grow a business here booking.
Agreed.
And it starts with outlining who those stars are.
Yeah. And just like for that one instance, like if that match did not occur, do you think the rating would have been any different? No, they certainly would have not. Yeah. So you blew that and you didn't get it didn't yield you anything either.
Exactly. Yes. 1,000%. Great point. Yeah, totally. I think you could have put on anything on that show and you probably still get, around 600,000 viewers up against, the onslaught of top talent that WWE was putting on. Like,
which was a bad show too, right? You had a whole column about it. It was a disaster of a show.
Terrible show.
Sorry.
Yeah, awful show.
The NXT show. To be clear,
yeah. I wrote a column for Brash Ring Media members about just how awful of a show NXT really was. That show had its own issues, and you can become a member and read my column on that. But you're so right to point out, like, if that match doesn't happen and it's Bryan Danielson against some other heel, same exact thing. I mean, at the very least, I think people will pay, or if you're going to want to see a Bryan Danielson versus Swerve, I think you're going to want to see a Bryan Danielson match. Like I really, I don't think there's all that much value in, like, you're not drawing any eyes with Swerve Strickland at this point. He's not there yet. He is there for the people that are watching him, but he's not like bringing in new eyeballs at this point. Do you, so do you see this, like, what do you think the long-term effect, if any, this type of tirade or what you learned about Tony Khan the last couple of days, like what will be the lasting immediate impact on AEW or on him?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say like what, I took the angle on our SC Scoops podcast of like, if I'm an executive for Warner Brothers Discovery or for NBC Universal, for Fox, watching what's going on here. Um, it's different viewpoint than you and I have or people in the chat have. But, I don't think that viewpoint is different if I'm an executive and this is the guy who runs the company. I think that's like the biggest negative at this point for him. Because I think people that know Tony Khan and follow him and in this run kind of know that this is not like a shocking development, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's not like he's like committed a crime or anything. It's not like a Vince McMahon thing. So that was also not a shock, right? Like when
right.
people tell you who they are, you should believe them. And that's kind of where I am with Tony. If I'm an executive and like doing a big deal, like, I don't love that this is like the face of this thing. And not
Mhm.
that it's like a negative, but it's not the, just like a sports team owner, right? Like very rarely do you see like a sports team owner be out and about. Who do you have? Jerry Jones and I don't know.
And
Like
even Jerry Jones, I mean, he's also the GM, so it's like a
yeah,
little bit. That's even a little bit different
yeah.
because
The
the
guy who
GMs are usually out in front,
yeah,
so it's a little
the
bit
guy
different. But yeah,
who's the guy that Steinbrenner on the
Steinbrenner, yeah,
Yankees. Yeah, I mean I think his kids do now, but they're not as active as George was. But like there's like a reason for that, right? I don't think the league's like the owners being out and being, I guess Jim Irsay for the Colts is like a good negative example of like
hmm
or Snyder for the Commanders before
oh
he
yeah,
left. Like big negative on those brands. And I don't think Tony's in that zone, but Tony's like kind of, if I have a property and that if I'm TNT, like my properties essentially are reruns of movies that we own or we license, basketball, hockey, and this guy Tony Khan's stuff. Right? That's like my whole portfolio at this time at this moment. If I'm Turner executives and like, do I like that? Do I like what's happening here? No. Do I send him a note? Do I feel like I can? I don't know. Right? So I think that's the biggest thing because it's just for people like you and me and people that follow this, they are we just know what it is, right? And it's just like more of the same, and it makes you not want to cheer like you did when the company started to have a healthy number two option for the business to do better. It makes you like, it makes me question like, well, why did I rail on CM Punk so much? Like, I mean, yes, he was wrong, but like he definitely has a point in some of these things too. And like, no
hmm
one's perfect, no one's 100% right all the time, but it makes you less apt to defend and excited to watch a product when kind of the kind of underbelly of it.
yeah,
That's kind of where I am.
yeah. Man, it's a good answer, man. I keep going. Like my reaction just continues to be like, just dude, grow up. I think grow up, man. Like you are the president of a major wrestling promotion. Act like it. And to Tracy's point here, maybe Warner Brothers Discovery will tell them to cool it. They easily could. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
easily could. They've got a lot invested, in AEW. I don't, you know, there's the rumors that they're actually invested in
Yeah.
AEW, but regardless of that, they take AEW product takes up a lot of airtime on their television properties, and so um, I'd be making a call if that were me, and I was running Warner Brothers Discovery and I saw this. I'm like, dude, like, hey, pump the brakes, man. You know, and I'd also, but again, it clues me into like maybe Tony's a little out of touch. And that's the part I think that's most concerning in that in this whole thing. It's not so much what he said or like he called Shawn Michaels a bald asshole or whatever. Like that all is just silly and juvenile and just just bad. But it's the fact that like you're this upset over something you really, if you know the market, you really should have known. Like, okay, look, this is gonna happen. So what's a win for us? Well, we want to have a good show, and we want to win these quarter hours, or we want to beat them to break, or whatever it is. But being this upset about losing a battle you were always going to lose, it's like, whoa, like you're not, you need to be knocked down a peg or two, and and not in a bad way necessarily, but like, wow, okay, mm, we're not where we are. Let's rethink this. How do we get to where I want to go? And instead, it's just rail on it because we thought we are gonna win, and it's just like, man, that's that's out of touch. That's out of touch.
Yeah. Like when you think, and this is just like the wrestling point of view. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying there on like the business and just expectation setting and setting your company up for success. There's lots of a CEO's job, which that's part of his position is to set expectations for the employees and the people that are following the company as well for what is success, like you laid out, right?
Yep.
And just doing that, be like, hey, we're moving, we're gonna do the best we can. They load it up against us, it's a win in our minds. But flip side is he thought, Eddie Kingston and Minoru Suzuki was gonna like give them an edge, and going
Right.
an extra 10 minutes with Luchasaurus
Right.
in your main event is gonna like, oh yeah, people are gonna choose that over literally the Undertaker, like going up against a up and comer of the company, right? And kind of giving him that Undertaker dust rub.
Yep.
And that's like the out of touch thing. So
Well, then not to mention, like, I'm thinking about the tweet that he sent about John Cena and Undertaker, and they've never performed in front of an audience less than 1,000,000. It's like, dude, when did Edge ever perform?
yeah.
Like,
Oh, that was like the quick rebuttal for sure. Was like, when did Adam Copeland ever? When did Danielson ever? When did CM Punk ever? Like,
ever? Yes.
yeah,
John
all those
Moxley,
guys
ever.
never
All those
had.
dudes. Like,
Yeah,
it's like
until they did, right?
until they did, and I
Yeah.
mean, that's just as ridiculous of an argument because, like, they're moving nights and whatever. It's just a different thing. So it's like it's an equally stupid argument, but if you're gonna make it on one end, you got to be able to take it the other way. And it's just like, boy, man, what a what a miss, what a miss, what a miss.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, you know, like what the immediate kind of response is to this because I think at this point, like, and there's some reporting done this morning on that. I think over at Fightful in terms of like what their internal reaction is. I didn't have a chance to read it yet. I'm in a different spot than normal, as you guys all can tell. I'm in a glass case of emotion here. Um, but it's gonna come out. It's gonna come out. That people either liked it or didn't like it or what have you, and um, we'll see. We'll see how whether or not that mindset trickles down. With certain people, you know, like I totally can see. Like I don't know. This is just me ranting, but I totally can see like Chris Jericho going to Tony. Hey man, it's all right. It's okay. We didn't win, but guess what? The Undertaker and John Cena never wrestled in front of less than 1,000,000 people. And then Tony Khan going, "Yeah, man, you're right. Cool." And then like just texting it, tweeting it out. Like I could like unfortunately I could see that happening. Or even like, Don Callis or something like that. Like I could just picture that happening. And if that mindset's all around the company, man, I mean, they have a long way to go. A long way to go.
Well, there's more. I was on Squared Circle while you were talking. I was listening too, but I was trying to see if I could get that Fightful news. And he's, yeah, he's. I don't know if you saw like stuff happen within like the last 2 hours on him. Maybe we'll save that for the patron thing. But basically, somebody with following 9 people and has 2 followers said something about Tony's mom. I guess she almost died last year, is what he's saying. Tony's saying in the Mayo Clinic saved her life, but he was like, you're talking crap about my mom, so enjoy this ratio, and like retweeted him so he would get like attacked by AEW people.
Who talked crap about his mom?
So I was listening to you as well, but
just like random fan on Twitter?
like it's called the sports book. It's literally a guy, they have 2 followers, so it's like a bot thing, So he's arguing with people with 2 followers on Twitter, So
wow, yeah, it's not
so
good.
there's
We'll
lots going on actively, like actively in this moment on 12:41 Eastern time on Friday the 13th. So
Friday, dude, I just realized it's Friday the 13th.
in October, spooky.
That is very scary. That is very scary. All right, guys, we will wrap up our free show there. Thank you to Sean and to Tracy and everybody else who joined us. Thanks for downloading the show after the fact on your favorite podcast app. We certainly appreciate it. We are going to head over to the member-only show. We'll talk a little bit more about Tony Khan. We'll also talk about Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon, because he also had a week. If Tony Khan didn't trump him with this news, Vince, I think, had not a great week.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, and we'll talk about that on the member side of the show as well. If you want to become a Brass Ring Media member, we would gladly have you, and we will make sure to give you all the value that you need in return. It's $4 over at Patreon, patreon.com/Brass Ring Media. Get you access to all of our free shows, our pay-per-view roundtables, our member-only content on Substack, a free weekly podcast, and lots of other hijinks, including access to our Discord world, which has been really fun. Wrestling discussion, not on the old Twitter X machine. So you can join us there. Once again, it's patreon.com/brassringmedia. Tyler, thanks a bunch, my friend. Talk soon.
See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.